Parents in this file. We are on YouTube, so let's be conscientious of that and not use the name of the child in this case, if we could. And let me have appearances, please.
Lee Heiss, lawyer, guardian ad litem.
Ms. Stasia Thomas, counsel for the department. Ms. Grant.
Chelsea Grant with the department.
Michael McFarland, representing father. Please introduce yourself.
Jacob Bates, I'm the father.
Catherine Mock, her mother. The mother.
All right. Ms. Heiss, I look forward to your report whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. I contacted mom for our visit and she is in complete command of this very busy schedule. So she helped me to see the child in person at Ivy Rehab. And she has a one-on-one provider there. I saw her there and she's adjusted to being away from her mom and dad at this environment, and they one-on-one allow her to swing. And then when it's time for her to transition and go to a different activity, you know, she doesn't want to do it. And I watched them handling her resistance, and very kind, very appropriate. They sit with her, they encourage her, they entice her, and there's other kids doing their own things. And it's a great environment for this child to be in. I think that since the beginning of this case, all these diagnostic tests have shown us her needs, and they are being met. She in her mother's care. Her father's visit reports are good. There's lots of strengths there. This psychological evaluation, though, is from a new group, and I don't see our normal testing measures, so I'm not sure if we can add to what we have so that we can serve these folks accurately and know for sure what the issues are. For example, if there's an IQ issue, and we could follow up with that and get further information. But other than that, her needs are being met in her current placement, and I have no further comment. Thank you.
Testimony today, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you. And if I inquire from the attorneys if their parents, if their clients would like to testify, if so, I can call them right now, or if they want to do the direct, I can defer to them.
My client does not.
Your Honor, Ms. Mills prefers not to testify as well.
Okay. All right, then I'll call Ms. Grant. Thank you.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Thomas.
Thank you. Ms. Grant, you have provided us with a court report for today's hearing, and your cover letter indicates that there are 10 documents total, including the court report. Are there any updates or modifications that you're aware of that need to be made to your court report or any of the documents that you've put into it?
There is not.
Okay. And at this time, the child remains in the home primarily with mom. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay. And dad's parenting time looks like it's taking place twice a week for 6 hours each time?
Yes.
Okay. And that is unsupervised at his residence?
It's kind of a mix. So he gets some time with our parent aid provider, Linda Edwards, and then a majority of the other time is essentially unsupervised, but his mother is there quite often during most of those parenting times.
And has there been any discussion about expanding parenting time for him?
Explaining or expanding?
Expanding, I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, I think you glitched. I apologize. We've kind of reviewed it and looking at, you know, the concerns right now that are still being addressed during parenting time. And then additionally, some of the things that were reported in the psych, we have not looked at expanding additional parenting time yet.
One of the, I think probably the main reason this case came before the court was really the parents' struggle in co-parenting and interacting in a way that was healthy for themselves, but also for their child. Your report indicates that there's been some progress. Is there anything else that you can tell us about any changes you've noticed in the last reporting period?
Sure. So in the very beginning of the reporting period, there was lots of struggles. They were still on that very, I think I referred to it as nitpicking, the best way I could refer to it. So they would get upset with the other about very little minor things that were not significant, that required CBS to kind of step in, diffuse the situations on those. As the reporting period has progressed, they have done better in communicating, depending on if the weather's bad, and moving and pick up and drop offs or times, or one parent had a funeral, so the other was able to step up and get the child a little earlier for the other parent to attend a funeral. They have navigated those situations pretty well, kind of on their own. The only time they had involved me was just to make sure, like, hey, can we do this? Is this okay? Asking permission. They've used that app Close pretty regularly. I would say that when we're talking about ongoing communications, there are times where each of them struggle, where we have mom who lays out very detailed reports of, this is the child's next dentist appointment, child's next doctor's appointment, next, whatever appointment she may have. A week or two may pass and dad may go back and ask, well, what is the appointment schedule? Well, it's in the app, you just have to scroll up, but he really struggles with being able to do that and make that recognition kind of on his own. We've talked about that, like making sure he's maybe keeping a calendar or keeping those kind of scheduling like ready to go. So overall with that, they are working on at least their communication in that sense. There are still some gaps or flaws, I should say, in their communication with any co-parenting that we're still trying to address. One thing right now is definitely with the visitation schedule. Each are wanting just a little bit of different change when it comes to pick up and drop off that the other either doesn't want to do or is having kind of like a, well, I do all of this, this needs to also be done. So we're still trying to navigate that little bit of change in the parenting time visitation plan that was submitted in the first court report. But they've done pretty decently well navigating after that.
And generally, your report reflects that both of them are in significant compliance with their case service plan. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Okay. So with the issues that Mr. Bates is experiencing with maybe remembering dates, times, even though it's sort of been this app close, based on I'm going to do a quote unquote psychological evaluation that was performed on him. This issue of like ADHD or needing medication, have you addressed that concern with him at all? And whether those two might be correlated?
Yep, so we had kind of like an entire family team meeting where we talked about the psychological. I'd spoken with his therapist about it as well, who also got it, and is going to work with him on those skills. The big issue with that psychological is it is a newer, I guess, company to us. And there was a lot of testing that are just pretty standard in a lot of our psychologicals that this company did not provide that we had noted. So it is possible where we explored if he went to MRS at the time. So when we first had the psychological come in, one of the recommendations was for him to go to MRS. He hadn't gotten employment or anything yet to kind of help with looking at those psychological or cognitive functions that he might be lacking. However, there wasn't a lot of follow through. Once he turned in the application and they reached out to him, they had stated that they couldn't get a hold of him, did close out the case. Then he had gotten employment, reached out to them. They said, well, now that you have employment, there's not really a whole lot we can help you with unless you lose employment or want to do that again. So we are looking at possibly getting those additional tests for him that are usually pretty standard in psychologicals that wasn't in this with this company, and exploring like how can we best help him and support him with those needs.
Thank you for that. And as it relates to mom, it looks like she's been pretty proactive in finding another provider that can meet her needs. Do you know if that working with that therapist has started yet?
She did have one a session with them. The issue for her is that he does want to see her weekly, which her copay would create kind of a little bit of a financial burden to her. So I did reach out to our funding specialist to see if through and excuse me, I can't remember the funding's specific title at this point, that it qualifies under, to see if we could cover the copays for that under it, since it's per our recommendation, since we don't have a contract with them.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to highlight from your court report? There's just so much information here that I don't want to spend too much time going through each and every document, but it really seems that the child's needs are being met. The autism spectrum disorder evaluation was completed. She's in her ABA therapy with IV rehab. So it seems like all of her needs are being met. Is there anything that is still outstanding that needs to be addressed for her benefit?
So right now, it looks like we're waiting for the first, I guess, reporting period evaluation. So one thing with this case of why it came here also is because the child was not in any long-term services. She would stay for a couple months, leave, go to a new service, start over again. So the parents have done pretty, I mean, Shayla too have also done pretty proactive in finding the place, Brighton, to do this evaluation. Both parents attended the CMH appointments to get her the referral for the ABA therapy, which has been starting, and it looks like tentatively, I think she's due for a reassessment at the end of January. I'm not sure the actual, it's not called an IEP for them, it's like an individualized treatment plan, but I believe that her review of that and her progress of her goals is stated for the end of January, which is the first reporting period of her, you know, being in that service for a substantial amount of time.
And then generally, with regards to the LNL parent aid reports for dad, are there any concerns that you think the court should know about, or any areas that are being worked on with Miss Edwards?
Sure. So Miss Edwards, couple of main areas that she has focused on in her reports is really Jacob's ability to identify needs. So he may have her and, sorry, I keep trying to not say her name, not recognize that maybe she is hungry or might need a diaper change. So those are things she's had to reiterate with him. There were some positives noted in there, and he was taking notes when they were talking about things, and he had a notebook, but then that notebook kind of fell off because he lost it or wasn't utilizing it. Same thing with the calendar. I know his mom does keep a calendar, but I wondered, I did bring up, what if you kept your own personal calendar? But then it comes into, he's worried about losing it again, like he had lost the notebook with the updated notes. So there's just the general day-to-day parenting that he's kind of struggling with unless someone is reminding him. I know one big thing that Miss Edwards had pointed out is that, and I think this kind of goes back to needing additional tests and supports for him, in the sense that he has always had somebody really doing things for him. And there's a lot of concern that he's unable to meet the needs of his daughter on his own without some kind of support, especially like his mom reminding him and those kind of things. Not saying not having family support is a bad thing, but that if we're talking day to day or only having her for 6 hours a day and still struggling, that would raise some alarm for concern moving forward to expanding his parenting time.
And it looks like he has completed some parenting classes, I believe, through Care Pregnancy Center.
He has.
Okay.
And he's able to, I'm sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
I was just saying, he's able to regurgitate, you know, the things he's learning in them, and like recognizing that his behavior and his actions, like his daughter is a sponge. We have, both me and LNL have encouraged him to maybe take the basics training. He is doing, I think, the autism right now, and then he's on deck to do a co-parenting one. but also making sure we're addressing like the daily needs and basics of a kiddo.
And so I was gonna just ask, so mom is on the wait list for the My Family program through Orchards. Will that also
Orchards are
service dad, or is it just for mom's home?
At this point, we were just planning it for mom's home since dad does have Miss Edwards, who's doing both the visitation and like supportive parent aid services. We didn't want to load him up on too many services or it's kind of like a failure, especially because she's in the home working with him when she has the kiddo or he has the kiddo. So that My Family will be either Orchards or Samaritans, actually, whoever has an opening first.
Okay. And because of the domestic violence component in this case, looks like mom was addressing that with her therapist. Is that something that she can continue with her new therapist? Are you aware?
So that's something we have to look into. One of the orders for the courts was to get, domestic violence right away, but I had called several providers in our area, including Trillium, Brene, Family Counseling and Resources. A lot of them don't provide the domestic violence curriculum anymore. So that's one reason why we did the referral for My Family for Shayla. But to cover both bases, just in case her new therapist isn't able to do it, but she just got her new therapist, I think the week of Thanksgiving. So we haven't had much time to explore what his options are moving forward, I guess I should say.
All right. And is there anything else that you'd like the court to know about referrals and any services for the parents?
All right, I don't think so. I think I covered a lot.
I couldn't hear that.
I'm sorry, I don't think so. I think I covered a lot. My apologies.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor, and would move to admit the court report and its attachments.
No objections.
Okay.
No objection.
Thank you, they are received. I'm gonna jump in, I have a couple questions. First, thank you for making sure that the psychologicals have gone to the counselors for the parents and finding some materials to help with domestic violence. That's above and beyond, and I just want to make sure I let you know I appreciate that.
They're still pending to be delivered, but they're ordered.
Great. So I'm looking at the psychologicals and I'm wondering, are we like, because one of the things that really is pretty useful and I think could be very useful as it relates to dad is that child abuse potential inventory screen that we sometimes see in Dr. Haugen's, for example. So I guess I'm just curious what you're going to be looking at as far as additional evaluations psychologically.
So when we would look at it, it would be this kind of the same testing that was in Miss Mills, but I can add the inventory if they have it. I'm not sure.
It's like a CAPI is the abbreviation.
Okay.
Child abuse potential inventory.
I'm sure, I know Dr. Frangie would probably be able to accommodate it without an issue. It would just be, I'm not sure that this other provider is able to do all those things, because typically when we do a referral, those things are pretty standard. Even the basic ones that Miss Mills completed. So it would be something we'd have to either follow up with them or possibly do a new referral for him to address those things and make sure they're in there. I know there had also been some concern about processing an IQ. So, and I don't know if that's something Miss Frangie could do, or if that's something we do need to really look at MRS, if that's something we need a specific referral.
Okay, well, I'm glad it's on your radar. Thank you. Is there a psychiatric evaluation lined up for mom in this one based on what was identified in her psychological? Or maybe something?
So she is already getting medication?
Perfect, okay, because I saw that she's at Family Medical.
Yes.
Didn't see that.
I did not provide it to her medical provider for that, but if that's something the court wants us to look into, we can definitely do that. She is on medication.
All right, as long as they know what he found, I think, and are able to look at that with regard to what they're doing with her, I think that could be useful. Okay. All right, questions, Ms. Dumont?
Ms. Grant, just to comment first, Ms. Mills did indicate that to me just now that her new therapist can do DV therapy. So I know you will just need to confirm that. But other than that, it looks like in the court report, she's compliant with almost everything what do you wish for her to focus on between now and the next review period?
So we're gonna really focus on the therapy, the DBT addressing the issues in the site. I know that she and I talked about, her co-parenting is kind of one of her big things moving forward because she doesn't want to be in this situation again. And then also just making sure we're addressing anything for her child. I know that she has been on top of pretty much anything that I've said, hey, or she comes to me and goes, I already did this. And I'm like, okay, you're ahead of me then. Good job, which is what I would want for a parent. Thanks.
Mr. McFarland?
Did I hear you that Ms. Linda Edwards is instructing my client some parenting time things?
Yeah, she's doing like the like supervised parenting, parent aid, that service for him, yes.
Okay. Is she licensed in the state of Michigan to do that?
Should we have a contract? I'm not sure if she has a license.
Does she have any accreditations from the state of Michigan?
I'm not aware, I'm not sure.
Well, my question to you, is she just a lay person, or does she have any specialized training in assisting parents? I mean, I know she's been doing this, but I'm aware can she actually testify in her field as an expert of some type?
I'm not sure what the credentials would be for her to be an expert witness, I guess, if that's what you're asking.
What are her credentials to teach parents? I guess would be my next question.
Well, hers is to be an aid to kind of help him with parenting and what daily needs and things are, like she does with a lot of our other cases and parents.
Right. But she doesn't have any credentials to do that. She's just a lay person. Is that my understanding?
Again, I'm not quite
Yeah,
sure.
okay,
I know we have
I'll-
a contract with her and that's where
Okay.
we did the referral, so
I'll move
I
on.
can't speak to that.
My client indicates he's been diagnosed with bipolar, depression, ADHD.
Mhm.
What are we doing under the American Disabilities Act to accommodate his diagnoses?
So that's one thing that when you ask him, he doesn't believe he has any like diagnosis or any, not I wouldn't say diagnosis, but any issues with all of that, where we're very much thinking that is part of his case and we'd like to get him some testing for that, to kind of help and assist with him
Okay,
in that.
and so that will be with whom and how soon?
Well, that's one thing we were just discussing, that we're looking into who we can do. MRS would typically do those, but since he's gotten a job and didn't follow through with that service, and then they stated that they wouldn't be able to help him moving forward, that's something we're gonna have to look at with getting him a new site with the full testing.
For my client's benefit and mine, MRS is what?
I'm sorry, Michigan Rehabilitation Services.
Okay, so that would be can his work hours accommodate that, do you know?
My understanding is it's only a couple of days a week. He was, I guess on a temporary basis where he was on call and they were just having him come in whenever, and he was to be put on the schedule permanently right around Thanksgiving or the week before Thanksgiving. So I'm not quite sure what his schedules are. I think it's based upon their needs, and I believe it's only part-time, but it could be more hours if they are needed.
Lastly, since he may have some issues navigating electronic media, is there some way that we could have a schedule which he could just put a magnet on the refrigerator and take a look at that, old fashioned?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, grandma has a whole, or I guess grandma, his mom, however you want to look at her, she has a whole calendar that she keeps track of. Literally way more than I even asked her to keep track of, including like what happens during visitations, when she's eating, those kind of things. So he has that readily available hanging.
Okay. Okay. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
I have no questions today, thank you.
Any redirect, Ms. Thomas?
No, Your Honor.
Any recross, Ms. Dumont?
No, Your Honor.
Very well, thank you for your testimony. You may return to your seat. Anyone else who'd like us to hear from today, Ms. Thomas?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any witnesses, Ms. Dumont?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. McFarland?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Heiss?
No witnesses today, thank you.
Comments in closing, beginning with Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Honor. At this time, we are asking for a standard review. It seems that the parents are definitely on the right path moving forward, which is always really great to see, especially so early on. Ms. Grant is very well versed in what else needs to be done, especially when it comes to further evaluations and assessments. So I can trust her that she would be making those referrals as necessary. I'm not sure if the other attorneys will ask, but it might be helpful for the parents and for Ms. Grant to sort of able to step back if the court were to provide any guidance on parenting time, drop off, pickup, and just making sure that that's sort of clear across the board. But other than that, Your Honor, I think they're off to a good start and just want to congratulate them on that. Thank you.
Comments, Ms. Dumont?
Your Honor, Miss Mills is doing really good. She's got a new home. I believe DHS was able to look at that and approve that as well. She's working full-time. She did her psych eval. She's done numerous classes. I believe those certificates are attached to the court report. She's doing her individual therapy. So I think if she continues down the road she's already doing, I don't know how long services will be needed at this point.
Thank you. Mr. McFarland?
I think the court has heard my concerns, and we also share the same concerns regarding the psychologist.
Ms. Heist?
I have no further comments. Thank you, Your Honor.
Very well. Court finds all interested parties are given notice for purposes of today's review hearing. I am glad to see the parents are engaged in their services. Thank you for doing that. It's not always the easiest thing to do, is to admit your weaknesses and then tackle them. So credit goes to you for jumping in like you have. We'll look for continued progress in those areas and continue to ask our caseworker to dedicate reasonable efforts like she has in this last report period in assisting you in those areas in the case services plans that have been identified. It will be the order of the court that the child will remain placed with mom with the visits with dad. And if that needs to expand or be modified again, I too trust Ms. Grant to have a look at that as Mr. Bates continues to make progress in his case services plan. We will have our next review Monday, February 24th at 1:30 p.m. Given that the child is in home jurisdiction with mom, I don't think we'll need to do a permanent money hearing right away. So that'll just be a regular review. The order will further reflect, of course, that Ms. Heist is in satisfaction with the guardian ad litem with her efforts. Thank you. And thank you to our attorneys as well. Unless there's any questions.
Should my client wait in the hall for copy of the order?
Not today. I think I have, yes, we have good. Well, I think your client doesn't have an email address.
Well, he just informed me he does, so off the record, he'll provide that.
Yes, I can provide you your court report in the next few days, or court order in the next few days.